Tonight on Canon Cogito. In the holiday spirit, we're digging into what balance really means. Peace on Earth or shaking things up for justice. We'll visit Aang's choice to spare Fire Lord Ozai and compare it to Roku's mercy. And we'll wrap things up by asking who'd make the trickier holiday guest, Toph or Azula. Let's get into it. Welcome to Canon Cogito, I think, therefore fandom. I'm Josh, and tonight we're bending our way into the worlds of Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. We're talking balance, justice, and what it means to leave the world different than you found it. And joining me tonight is Alec, my best friend, longtime nerd co-conspirator, and someone I've endlessly talked over fandoms with. Alec, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell folks a little bit about yourself, your connections to the Avatar universe, and which element you'd bend if you were stringing up the holiday lights.
Well, hello everyone. I am Alec. I have over 30 years, and I'm only 31, of experience in nerdy fandoms. I've always been really into video games and nerd culture, thanks to my father mostly, who really got me into these kinds of things at an early age. So I love things like Star Wars, Nintendo things, Pokemon, Super Smash Brothers, Zelda, Star Trek, lots of different feet and different puddles around the nerddom, as you will. I've been a fan of Avatar. I didn't watch the first 2 episodes, which came out together as a 1-hour special when it aired, but I believe I saw them afterwards and then saw the 3rd episode live when that aired. So for essentially as long as Avatar has been a thing, I have consumed it. At first a little bit more as a newbie, as everyone was, but then really started hitting it hardcore as Avatar was getting more stride and more references and more accolades for what it was. And then especially after Avatar ended and Korra started going on, I just ate that up. It was one of my absolute favorite TV shows growing up as a kid. I very distinctly remember that when I was growing up, I had an allowance of $20 every week. And every once in a while, they would release these DVDs of Avatar episodes that you could buy. And they were $12.99. And so I would spend my allowance whenever they came out, whichever week they came out, on these DVDs. So I had all of them before they had the whole complete box set thing. And I also remember in book 3 Fire episodes, 13, 14-ish, The Boiling Rock, part 1 and 2. It was released on one of those DVDs before it was aired on Nickelodeon. And so I very much remember looking at it in the store and wait just a gosh darn second. I know that I've not seen these 2 episodes that's on here. What is going on? And so I got it, and then I watched them, and then I remember tuning into Nickelodeon for their premiere. It was world premiere of these episodes. I'm like, yes! I am better than you. All the way going into running an Avatar: The Last Airbender / Korra themed TTRPG. Which included Josh as a wonderful firebender who wanted to kill everything that wasn't a firebender, pretty much.
Traditional firebending.
In terms of what element I would bend when it comes to stringing up lights for the holidays, that even makes my answer even easier than what it normally would, because it does not change. I believe I would be an airbender. I really like being able to have the freedom to go where you want to go, to do what you want to be able to do, to not be necessarily tethered down by by your roots, but to be able to be where you want to be and do what you want to do and go where you want to go. And I love that kind of freedom where you can do lots of things with it. You can do something like Aang chose to hold on to your worldly attachments in the scope of what everyone else is telling you not to do, and still be able to do the incredible things that the Avatar needs to do to keep the world in balance. But also, stringing up the lights, airbending. I wouldn't have to go up on ladders or enlist multiple people to set up long strings of lights, just little tornadoes, little tornadoes everywhere, and set those lights up real nice and delicate like.
That's awesome. I think airbending probably comes the most in handy in that situation. Specifically because, earthbending would be the close second, because then, you still don't need to bring a ladder because you are one. So I think earthbending kind of falls in that same realm with airbending in this particular situation.
But most places during the holidays have a lot of snow and a lot of cold weather.
Oh.
So, there'd be probably a real good use for some waterbending or making some like real cool ice sculptures or even like palaces or buildings or things with water and ice bending.
Yeah, and imagine shoveling your driveway with a firebender. Yep, just
done.
Awesome. So let's move into the very first save point, Alec. If you could adopt any animal from the Avatar world as a holiday companion, sky bison, turtle dove, platypus bear, or something else entirely, which one would you bring home?
This is a very interesting question. If you choose someone like Appa Sky Bison, you could make a real good cosplay as Santa Claus. Giving hope and holiday cheer to people. But I think I would choose a lemur. I would like, not necessarily Momo, but any kind of flying lemur. I think there's a lot of, bits and baubles and shiny things around that people gather for the holidays, and having a little flying lemur friends who can hone in on those kinds of things and help distribute wealth from maybe people who have more shiny things to people that don't have shiny things would be kind of fun. And plus, it'd be a lot easier to take care of something like a flying lemur than a couple of ton sky bison in your backyard.
And it'll fit in a box under the tree, and that's extra points.
Make sure you poke some holes in the top.
I'm certain many people have made that mistake before. Do not give pets as gifts for the holidays.
I saw a meme recently during the Runaway episode in Book 3 Fire, when Sokka asks Aang if he can borrow Momo for a little while because Haki's out doing a thing, and he's like, how long do you need him for? I don't know. Like, what kind of madness would go down if the scheming minds of Momo and Sokka got together to deliver some kind of, revolution-themed strike back at the Fire Nation?
I can imagine the buddy cop movie already. Like, I'm so down. I'm so in for this.
Wings in the brain.
Yep. So would a flying lemur benefit you when it came to putting up decorations, helping set up the tree, or would it end up being more of a detriment?
Well, I would depend on how trained the lemur is. If I'm someone like Milo that can train an entire squadron of flying lemurs within a day or whatever it was. But I do foresee some kind of, cat-like instincts of tearing down ornaments from trees or even like flying to different houses and tearing down lights and things because it saw a bug or a leech or something somewhere, or mistook an ornament for a nut that he wants to crack open. So it would depend on how trained you could get him to be.
That was my inkling as well. Like, you're gonna end up with that very cat-like issues with the lemur, where it's going to chase things around. It's probably going to try and get into the tree, potentially knock it over. Like, I don't think it would be that helpful, mostly because, I mean, all Lance does is sleep all the time. So, especially during the holidays.
But, like, imagine curling up next to the fire with a lemur in a little circle in your lap with a nice cup of hot cocoa. Like, that just sounds wonderful.
That does sound great. That sounds really great. Let's go ahead and move on to Thought Save, which is going to change for next season. We're going to do that right here. It's going to change more next season, but no timer. Alec, my proposition to you is that the Equalists were wrong because technology already gave non-benders the tools to compete with benders.
The Equalists were wrong because technology already gave them the ability to compete with benders.
Specifically for that reason. They were wrong for more reasons, but specifically for that reason, that is why I propose that they were wrong.
Well, for Equalists, what really came out of their movement, especially as season 1 of Korra continued to go along, was like overpowering benders, was using the physical might of technology, whether that be the electric shock gloves or the two staves that the lieutenant had, or the mech suits that Sato started to create and utilize. But really what started off as the essence of the Equalist movement was about things like status-wise being equal between non-benders and benders, where benders, were for the most part in the higher part of society, had more options and things available to them. Not always, because like later on we do see the Earth Queen, who was not an Earthbender, but because of that familial tie, she is queen. So she's not queen because of her bending status, she's queen because of her family. But what the Equalist movement ended up being was more about having and holding that power to make the benders feel the same kind of threat and fear that they had felt against their hands. And that really kind of sparked a lot more, and we saw it in Republic City when we see a mesh of so many nations coming together. When it's not just benders and non-benders against each other, it's sometimes Fire Nation against Water Nation, or you have your the Triple Threat Triads was water, earth, and fire, but you have your groups who are solely in one element, and solely in fire, solely in water, solely in earth. So there was, a lot of crime and things in Republic City that kind of crashed together because of the nature of that city. I do think the Equalists were wrong in a lot of their ideology. But I don't. I think what they were trying to do was get that power over the benders.
So, would bending eventually fade in a tech-driven world anyways?
No. Not in what we've seen in Avatar. Bending is not just like I was talking about. It's not just about power. It's not just about holding that status over someone, but it's also about the culture. It's steeped in familial history and culture, and it's about like connecting to the world, to the life around you. So you might see less of some kinds of bending. You might see more of other kinds of bending. In season 1 of Korra, we see evolutions of bending that we never saw in Avatar. We see pro bending, which utilizes fire, earth, and water, but in very unique kind of quick jabbing kind of styles that is very a big departure from the traditional kind of bending styles that we see. We see firebenders lightning bending on ships, as Mako does, to create power for the city. That is never anything we kind of saw in Atla. So as time and technology progresses through the series, you're going to see different things kind of ebb and flow, I think.
So
but it's never going to go.
So if we go back a little bit to what you said, like it's more about connecting with nature and connecting with the culture. In our world, in the real world, if benders bended like in the real world, we're already seeing that kind of culture and connection to nature start to kind of fade away. Do you think that would be, if they followed the same timeline, that would kind of be the path that it would take?
I mean, I would hope not. But I mean, you never know. You get instances where, Fire Nation tries to take over and wipes out an entire civilization, essentially in one night, in one attack. So like you want to say no, that culture will be preserved in some way or another, whether it's in your structures, your buildings, your readings, your garments, your adornments, things like that. But hopefully you still have some kind of storytelling leaders that can progress that down the line, as humanity has done forever.
Definitely. I can see that. I can also see a world where it does start to go away, because that's at least from my perspective, that's kind of what we've seen with religion and nationalism. They've kind of faded away, and they're kind of like coming back in a big way now, but it's kind of faded away over the last 30-ish years. And we've dealt with a lot less of this cultural clash that, for lack of a better phrasing, that you see in Avatar: The Last Airbender, or that you saw for 10,000 years of human history. So I can definitely see it going both ways.
I will say that for as long as we go back in the Avatar world, it has been so closely tied to the culture and to its people. When we see Juan, who originated as a firebender, go around to the other lion turtles and connect with them and have Rava get their bending from them, we see their distinct cultures. We see their distinct styles, and in that beautifully animated 2-part episode, which is so freaking gorgeous. But we see, the airbenders, in their robes, in their monk robes, as they peacefully ride on a cloud to pick up an apple from a tree. Like, you see their cultures are even like defined and shaped at that point. So I think it is so terribly close to who they are that I don't see it completely going away. I definitely see like ebbs and flows as time and humanity and things like technology go on, but I don't think it would ever completely go away.
So if we move forward now in the same vein, after harmonic convergence, you've got all these brand new airbenders who don't know the culture, who they weren't grown in it. Do you think that's going to lead to a decline in air nomad culture?
I think it will. So there's going to be so many people that don't know, like you said, anything about the culture, because they weren't born in it. They didn't learn the teaching as they were growing up. It's just essentially one day, boom, they wake up and they can start moving things with air around their apartment. So yes, you're going to get some people who kind of don't really care about that culture or wants to attune that part of who they are now. But you're also going to get a lot more people who are interested and wants to know more and wants the answers to the questions that they're going to be having. So just with a larger pool of airbenders to take from, you are still going to have those people who come through and want to know more about that culture. And we still have the air acolytes that are on the different air temples as well, who are not airbenders but still continue to keep that history and that culture moving forward.
Awesome. I can see that. Um, I don't know. It's one of these really hard things, uh,
Absolutely.
especially when we like try to draw a parallel to the real world, mostly
Mhm.
because there is no bending here. Um, but you do see cultures and religions and ideologies kind of fade away over time. So that's kind of where this line of questioning is coming from. Is if in the Avatar universe it would follow the same kind of string of events, but it sounds like you are firmly on the no. You're still going to have the mainstay people who are hanging on to this culture and this belief system.
Or some way to find it or tap into it, because there's even the spirit realm, which guided Aang so much through his journey when his entire people and culture was gone. So like he had the benefit of being born into the Air Nation and having teachings and becoming a master before he tried to run away and was put into the iceberg. But you still have spirits and the Avatar spirit and past avatars to help with that knowledge going forward.
Awesome.
Which we'll talk about that
Yeah,
too later.
yeah, we'll get more into that, I'm sure. So let's go ahead and walk our first critical path. When the Avatar talks about balance, does that mean keeping things stable and peaceful, or fighting for justice even if it shakes everything up? What does balance really look like in practice?
This is such a friggin' hard question. um, and
And
it
it's
is,
so poignant, especially for the world we live in right now.
yeah, yeah. And it makes me extremely happy that in this life or another, I am not the Avatar and I don't have to make these kind of decisions about what balance means. Um, I really think balance means something different depending on what time you are in, what is going on around you in the world. You can try to help um, push the piece of the time, the development, the growth, the fairness of the world around you to keep things like population, like food, like uh, uh, um, regimes that get out of whack in control. But there are different times when an avatar is front facing in their era where they have to do different things to maintain that balance. I mean, you get someone like Avatar Kirk, who was the waterbender before Aang and Kyoshi, who was in a peaceful time. And he really didn't have to do a whole lot in his era to maintain balance, to keep things peaceful between nations, because it kind of was already there. And he describes himself as a go with the flow kind of avatar, which is, waterbending. But he didn't have a climactic or intense world changing decisions that he had to make to keep the world in balance. And partially because of his inaction, started the ideologies of the Fire Nation that we see when Sozin and Roku are young, when they're like, oh, the Fire Nation is so incredible. We are doing so many things great. Wouldn't it just be so grand if we shared everything with the rest of the world? And then so then you get into Roku's era. Well, okay, before that you get into Kyoshi, and she had to stop the Earth King from Jin the Conqueror from taking over land. But then you get into Roku, who has to choose between, well, like what balance means to him. Does that mean maintaining my connection and my relationship to my brother in the Fire Nation, and in the nation that I grew up in and I believe can do well, or do my allegiances and my commitment to the world and being the Avatar go against that, and do I need to make sure that the world is then preserved and taken care of above my own home nation? So that balance question to Roku means something completely different than it ever meant to Kurik, or it did to Kyoshi.
Or
And then
Aang,
going or Aang, or any other, Avatar that we've seen. And then for Aang, the world has been so out of balance for so terribly long because the Fire Nation has this regime and has continued this 100-year war. It has spread to mostly Earth Kingdom territories. So really for him, what balance meant for him was to end the war, was to create peace in his time so that the nations weren't attacking each other, so that they can rebuild the connections between the nations and continue to put humanity on a path moving forward. So balance just means something different with each Avatar, and it's interesting to see what happens in each era of Avatar, and partially like knowing what happens. Like, before we even got into Roku's story, we knew what happened. We knew what the outcome was. It's like watching Star Wars. You watch 4, 5, and 6, you know that spoiler alert, oh my gosh, that Anakin is Darth Vader, and then you go back into 1, 2, and 3, and you watch how that happened. You know at that end that there has to be this moment where it is some kind of decision. Everything that leads up to that is that decision of Anakin becoming Vader. But to watch all of that happen in that era is part of the fun of journeys and part of the fun of fandoms, to get to know all of those intricacies of the ins and outs and things. Not saying that trade routes are something I really jive with Star Wars, but to get into why things happened, and the relationships between characters that you knew were there before but you didn't realize had that tie before. That's what a lot of people really like in fandoms.
So, digging into...
We're not my pants. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Digging in a little bit more, it is obvious that you hold the idea that balance looks differently for everyone. So I'll skip that question just straight up, because that is one of my follow-up questions. Does balance for one group, like the Firebenders, always create imbalance for another group, like everyone else?
It shouldn't. I think it often does, because of human nature.
Like an overcorrection?
Like an overcorrection, but power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you start to get a taste of what it's like, because you even when benders, you have that power over citizens who aren't benders, who are not against you, but are not in your nation, then you might feel more compelled to, take this Earth Kingdom city's resources, because your Fire Nation city needs it more than they do, and that's your opinion. So I think it's just kind of a part of human nature that you see that a lot. Not that it has to mean that overall. I think Aang does his very best to try to put the world back into balance after the 100-Year War, after Ozai is defeated. And for years, for decades after that ends, I mean, he is around in the Fire Nation colonies, which is now Fire Nation families in Earth Kingdom territory. So then what do we do with that? Do we let the Earth Kingdom people whose land it should be come back in? Do we let the Fire Nation families who have brought up families for, in some cases 80 years or so, continue to live there? What do we do with that? And in different instances, it means different things. And it's a part of the Avatar's job to discern what, or at least lead people in a path where they think it's right. It may not be the correct decision, but to have a unified decision moving forward that he or she or they believes is going to be right moving forward.
I like that. That makes sense to me. I think we see it a lot, specifically in the real world, right around after conflicts, after large-scale conflicts go on. We see a lot of these discussions go on, but I don't know if that has a lot to do with balance or fairness. And not to get deep into semantics, but I do think that these are two separate ideas. Being fair is not always being balanced, and being balanced is not always going to create a fair society. Now, if we look at specifically the Avatar world, is it really balanced that the Earth Kingdom controls 3/4 of the land masses in the world? Is that balanced? So I think we could get deep into this specifically.
Yeah.
We probably shouldn't. I think we could, though. I think there's a lot to dig in specifically to this question, because it reflects real world so closely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a really amazing thing in the series that we've seen so far to be in the minds of the avatars, to have them be our protagonists, to see through that first-hand basis why they make the decisions they do, what justifies what they're doing. And so then we, as an audience, can either accept that and think that's a good way to do it, or no, and think that there's a better or different way to do it. So it's really cool to see that too. And I think that's a lot of where people stray away from Korra, is that they don't agree with the decisions that she made to try and keep and maintain balance in her time. And so there's a lot of really good debates there as well about, did she do the right thing in this instance,
Well, and yeah, and it's hard when, so if we look at it like a political system, we're kind of looking at it like a monarchy. You have all of these people in charge of all of these duchies, but all of these duchies still answer to the monarch. And in this scenario, the Avatar being the monarch, it's difficult to say this is fair, just, and balanced when one person is making this ultimate decision. So
we're still each of the nations, and they have their hierarchies on their own, and then they can choose to accept the Avatar's help or decisions or whatever, or use them as a counsel, like Zuko often does, or choose to go against them, like Kyoshi, like Roku, like Aang.
I can see that as well, and it's a very strange setup for if we're comparing it from real world to fandom world. It's not something that you see very often. Maybe the closest would be modern day Rome, where you have the church and they have all this power, but you still have a parliamentary system there. I think that might be the best comparison, because often these two things are at odds, but they still have to work together to create a fulfilling nation for people to live in. Like, it still has to work for everyone, no matter what.
Yeah.
All right, Alec, let's
I'd
go.
agree.
Oh, sorry.
I would agree with that. It's
Yeah.
just
Let's go ahead and move forward to headcanon. This is going to be your space. Bring a hot take, a theory, or even a holiday-flavored what-if about Avatar and Korra. Doesn't matter if it's serious or ridiculous. Lay it out there, and we'll see if it holds up.
my hot take is a hot take, a steamy take, if you will. I have always loved, and the narrative of Avatar really wants you to root for Aang and Katara to be together. She's the first face that he sees when he wakes up from the iceberg. She's the reason that he can't let go of love, to fully connect to the Avatar state when going through his chakra training with the guru, and he chooses love and attachments over the cosmic power. So yes, I get it. You want to root for them to be together. You want them to get together, and they do at the end, and it's this really heartfelt, wonderful moment.
Very cathartic.
There are what?
Very cathartic.
Yeah, very cathartic, very feel good. There are a whole slew of people out there who really, really wanted and want to see Zuko and Katara be together in a relationship. Like you, sure. My hot take is that is not a relationship that would work out in the long term. You could get some real steamy moments. You'd get some
because
they would
it's
clap
water and
together.
fire,
It's
steamy.
water and fire. Yes. Yep. But they are not compatible long term together, and I think that Aang and Katara are a much better match together for each other.
I strictly disagree with you.
I know you do. I know for a fact you do.
I think we often say this thing when you're looking for somebody and you don't think that they quite even up to you. We often say that opposites attract, and I think that you could have this same argument in this situation, where they are very, very different people. They are on other ends of the spectrum from each other, and you don't see the same kind of conflicts that you see with Aang and Katara. But those conflicts often make relationships stronger if you can make it out to the other side of them. So
yeah, it doesn't mean it has to be romantic relationships.
Agreed.
And you do see their relationship get so much stronger when Zuko helps Katara confront the man who killed her mother, where she was putting all of that blame into the face of Zuko, the Fire Nation that chased them for so much of this journey. So that was a very cathartic thing for her to do, and for their relationship to grow and become better from that. Absolutely. Doesn't mean that they're better suited for each other romantically than Aang and Katara.
We'll agree to disagree. Not that I think anything in the story should be changed, but I do think that is one of the great counterfactuals of the Avatar universe. Because I think they're just compatible enough to make it work. And also, I'd love to see this dynamic in Korra, right? Where you have this whole new family that's not Aang and Katara. Instead, It's Katara and Zuko. It's Aang and Zuko. It's Katara
It's
and
Aang and
Zuko.
Zuko.
Yeah. Instead, it's Katara and Zuko, and now you've got potentially these benders who have sensitivity to other senses. I think that opens the door for a lot of really interesting storylines moving forward.
I completely agree with you in that sense that, you know, when you start to get into benders of other elements coming together and making families, producing children, that they are going to be more sensitive to full balanced worldview of nations, and of bending. What comes to mind is when Uncle Iroh is talking to Zuko about redirecting lightning, and telling him that this is a technique that I learned from watching the waterbenders. So being in tune with other elements and other cultures and other parts of the world can enhance and grow new abilities and maybe even new powers. Like we see new powers come through in Korra that we've never seen before, and I don't expect that's going to change as we continue on into the Avatar world, because that's just going to be more cool new things to talk about and to discuss and to
I want to play with the toys.
Exactly. They're there. But when you see Aang in these crushing moments of despair, of grief, of depression, when nothing can ever get him out of the Avatar state, when he is, you know, about ready to destroy structures, buildings, people around him, more often than not, almost always, it's Katara that's able to get him out of that, to calm him down, to get him to a place where he can be himself again.
I don't refute any of that. I don't disagree with any of that. Like, most notably is the second episode, the third episode, when they're in the Southern Air Temple. That's the most notable situation example that I can think of for exactly that. Somebody who has just started watching Avatar, going into this, but it's I don't know, man. So where do most fans sit on this? Is it like a 50-50 split where people want this Katara Zuko, or is it more or less than that? Where do fans really land on that?
I think I have never looked at like an online poll. I will say that I've listened to the official Avatar podcast, Braving the Elements, almost completely to where they are right now. So I have heard them talk about this a lot, and I've talked to, you know, people throughout my years watching Avatar. I think there is a skew towards Katang, the official canon, but the people who believe in the Zutara are extremely passionate and make their voices heard very strongly. So I think numbers wise it's more in the Katang category, but I think the passion of it is in the Zutara fandom.
Okay. And that makes sense. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure where it kind of lived on that spectrum. It sounds like you are also not 100% sure where it lives on that spectrum, yeah. But I think that's likely a good kind of sample size is who the people who are talking about it and seeing where they land in this zone, because there probably has been a poll, but you're definitely not going to have everybody who's ever had an opinion on this vote in that poll. So,
right.
So I think that's a fair assessment.
There is one more instance where Katara is able to really get through to Aang that I do want to make as a point here before we keep going.
Sure.
It is at the end of the Serpent Pass. This is when Aang has lost Appa, and is really more unlike himself than like at any other point in the series. And it's not because of the Avatar state. It's not because of like intense anger at one specific thing. It's because of his grief and despair in losing such a close connection to himself, to his culture, and his best friend in Appa. And Katara continuously tries to like, do her normal thing of like, you need to hold on to hope, you need to keep believing, and it just doesn't get through to him. And it's at the end when they come together and they save the family and hope gets born, that he's like, it finally clicked in him. It's like, you're right. I do need to able to hold on to those beliefs even in the darkest parts of myself. And that would not have happened without Katara being there.
I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. But at the same time, using your own logic against you, this doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, so they could have just been really close friends.
I just wanted you to know, Aang, I've always loved you like a brother. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm ready for that. I'm ready. I'm ready for the rewrites, man. I'm ready. You're ready. Let's get into it. Let's go talk to the people at Avatar Studios and get those rewrites in.
Freaking the Netflix Avatar show better have a really good cast for the Boy in the Iceberg, for the Fire Nation play.
Oh my god. I if I had to guess, Alec, that is going to get skipped.
No, it can't. They can't do that to us.
They can. And if I had to guess, that is one of the things that will get skipped.
No, they have to reference it. We're not going to get it, in a whole episode, but they have got to give us some Ember Island players. It is too good. There's too many good lines that people are going to miss and chastise them for.
Yeah, they don't care. Netflix doesn't give a shit. And with Avatar Studios, with the initial creators of Avatar not really being there for it, dude, I wholeheartedly think that's something that just goes by the wayside. It's not an important episode. It's important to fans. It's not important to a business. They don't give a shit.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm gonna be in the streets with a pitchfork and a rake and a torch.
Oh man, you're gonna have your hands full with a pitchfork, a rake, and a torch.
I'm gonna squeeze one between my butt cheeks.
All right,
like a stinger on my back.
let's go ahead and move forward to our second critical path. Aang spared Fire Lord Ozai by taking away his bending, while years earlier, Avatar Roku spared Sozin, a choice that opened the door for the 100-Year War. Side by side, what do these moments say about mercy and accountability in leadership? Was Aang right, or did history just repeat itself?
Another freaking great reason why I'm not the Avatar and I'm not making these decisions. So I think they're not equal in the sense of the reasoning behind they were spared. I think Roku spared Sozin in that moment when they're in the chamber and Sozin lights up and tries to take down Roku, and Roku gives him that final warning, if you continue down this path, I will have to end you. I will have to stop you. I think it was Roku decided to do that because of his personal connection to Sozin, because they were brothers, because it was also his nation, and he felt like as the Avatar, he could. It wasn't yet at that point where it couldn't be stopped. He felt like he still had the ability, the power to stop it if it crossed that line, which he didn't think it had at that point yet. Which obviously it had surpassed that point, and especially using the comet, Sozin was able to destroy the Air Nation. But that reasoning of why he spared Sozin was different. Aang spared Ozai because of his own ties to himself as a character, as a person, and fought back against what the Avatars previous were telling him to do. They when talking to Kyoshi, I know I shouldn't have talked to Kyoshi. When talking to Roku, when talking to Kurik, when even talking to Avatar Yang Chen, the last airbending avatar before him, they were all telling him that he needed to sacrifice that part of himself for the betterment of the world, because if that's what the world needed, then that's what you need to do as the Avatar. You need to put the world before yourself, which the history of what Aang has done is not good in that department. He has not put the good of the world over himself in multiple times. When he ran away, when he was told he was the Avatar, when he chose Katara over the spiritual elements.
So, I don't want to like knock you off track or anything, but I kind of want to dig into the Airbender, the last Airbending Avatar. I don't know their names. I'm so bad with names. Would he have had the same outlook had he known that spirit bending was an option?
Would Yang Chen?
Yes.
Who is female?
Oh, she. Sorry. They're all
you're
bald.
okay.
I don't know.
She has hair on the back of her head. She doesn't outright say, you, Aang, have to kill Ozai. What she says, and without like looking up the quote, is the Avatar has to do what must be done for the world. So, like, and she understands coming from the same point of view. So if she had known that was a kind of thing, I have no doubt that she would spur him onto that and to use that at least as some kind of compromise before a last resort of ending his life. But her advice was still sound and right, I believe, in that that instance of an Air Nation avatar is kind of pulling against what you've known as a member of the Air Nation. Is you have to sacrifice yourself and your beliefs for the world. Unless you find, a super old lion turtle that teaches you how to spirit bend in the ninth hour, to find a way to peacefully end the conflict without taking the life of the enemy leader.
Awesome. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to knock you off your
No, you're good.
thing there. I was just curious because there wasn't, that option didn't exist before he went and talked to all the previous avatars. Like, it did. It was an option, but nobody knew about it.
Right. That's a better way to say it, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to take an option I don't know about either. So
yeah.
it doesn't exist from my perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
from Aang's perspective at that time, it didn't exist either because
right.
he had no information about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so was Aang's mercy wiser, or is Ozai going to come back, even as just a spiritual successor, as a leader? Is he going to spark this new age of firebenders that think that they are dominant over all other benders?
So I'll answer this in two parts. I do think it was wise for Aang to not kill Ozai, and specifically for Aang to be the one to fight Ozai. Like Iroh said, not for Iroh to do it, not even for Zuko to do it in that instance, because then history sees it as, familial ties, fighting for power. It's the Avatar who's supposed to be the um bridge between worlds for everyone, fighting against the over compensating power, the reigning dominant force. And I think having that knowledge out in the world, and it is known that Ozai is not dead, that he is still alive, helped kind of that transitional point of the Fire Nation, and started to try to help people outside of the Fire Nation to show that there's these huge changes that are happening. What you've known of the Fire Nation in the last 100 years is not what the Fire Nation is trying to be and trying to grow into as we continue to move forward in history. However, yes, there were absolutely groups who dedicated themselves, called the New Ozai Society, who followed in the paths and ideals of Ozai. And Fire Nation is the dominating force and should be the one nation that rules above all other nations, no matter what. And they talk about that in some of the Dark Horse comics that happen between Avatar and Korra. So overall, yes, I think it was a wise decision, but with any kind of person in that kind of power, you're going to see that martyr sensibility of people going and fighting for what they fought for their ideals.
I agree with that. I think when you have when you have a polarizing figure like that, you're going to see this kind of extension of his or her polarizing beliefs extend past when they are no longer in power, they are no longer alive. And those kinds of things are going to deal lasting damage to any society. It doesn't have to be one that is already predicated on some kind of force or strength or violence. Like, not to say that the original firebenders were violent or anything, but that is what it's become, at least as far as we've seen it from Wan to Zuko. It has become this very whoever's the strongest, whoever's the bravest kind of mentality. And that leaves dents in cultures.
Yeah. And we know for a good portion, like, when that mentality really like started to shift from the kind of traditional firebending values, where fire meant life and warmth, to power and to destruction. As we know, the dragons were the first firebenders, and that's what they taught, was fire was life. And when it became all about hunting down dragons to gain a status, because you were more powerful than them, you can best them, you can beat them, is really when you start to see that change manifest in the world.
How unfortunate.
It did not all die out, though, which is wonderful.
Yes. That's so unfortunate. That's like saying, yeah, we killed all the rhinos but one. He's in the San Diego Zoo. Like, I mean, it's still really unfortunate.
Absolutely.
So, from your perspective, does the Avatar owe the world mercy, or any sort of prevention from future harm?
in the sense, forgive me, but with great power comes great responsibility.
All right,
I
Ben,
mean,
calm down.
they're with such huge ultimate power in this universe, with people able to, you know, carve down a mountain with their thoughts, who can level hundreds of miles of crops with an airship and some firebenders. There should be some kind of entity out there that helps for the betterment of people, for looking out for people, for the good of people. Um, and I think what we've seen of avatars is they decide to take up that mantle to be that for the world, partially because that's what avatars have done in the past before, and they're continuing on that tradition. Um, do they have to? No, and then you'd see more. I mean, you kind of see that when Aang is in the iceberg. The world doesn't have an avatar, and the world gets so out of balance partially because of that. So I mean, no, the avatar doesn't have to, but the world is better if they do, I think.
I agree. I also think that, um, yes, with great power comes great responsibility, and I think,
Okay, then.
and I think that you see this kind of play out in the real world, where just because people have the means to help does not mean that they do help. But if they did help, the world would be in a better place than it is today. So I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And the Avatar has the means to help. They also have the status to be able to help. So they should. I think from my perspective, it is a moral pejorative. No, not even. It is a moral necessity that they help. Like, it is not just something that they should do, but some of them don't do. It is a moral necessity. It is why they are there.
Obligation.
Yes, thank you. That is exactly the word I was looking for. A moral obligation to do so. So and that's just me. That's just from my perspective. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that it's the right perspective, but I do think that that is kind of what they owe the world for the power that they have.
And then you get into something like Unalak, who becomes a dark avatar who gets these powers on par with the avatar. Maybe not all the training, but the essence to be a antithesis, a dark figure against the avatar. So it's scary to think of, what does the opposite end of that spectrum look like? Someone actively looking to shape the world in like their singular thoughts and ideals, making people bow down to their beliefs because they have that power, because they have that status. And we haven't really seen that, at least yet, because Unavatu wasn't able to get that pedestal, that platform. But seeing so much of it on that one side of for the betterment of the world, I agree.
Yeah, I think, truthfully, Alec, I don't think we'd be here talking about it if the roles were reversed. I don't think it would have been as popular of a show. At least at the time it came out, with the bad guy being the main character, I don't think that would have caught on as quickly.
Absolutely not.
I think now, what, 24 years after its release, you're probably going to see a lot more people like, I think that would be a cool storyline to dig into, but it also already has its roots in pop culture.
Exactly what I was about to say. It already has its roots in pop culture. We already have this huge, amazing, beautiful, fleshed out world that we've seen 2 series with, and all of these beautiful art books and all these different stories and talks and things. So with it being a more developed, absolutely. But I was just talking about like in that world having a dark avatar project their ideals and using their powered status to do so.
I'm so interested in that storyline. Like,
And
not
we
gonna
might be
lie.
getting it.
I'd be happy to get it.
We'll dive more into it.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move forward to Canon Court. Tonight's case, Katara and bloodbending. Was her choice proof that even the most moral among us will embrace darkness when the stakes are high?
Oh, I mean, you see this theme so much in pop culture with good guys who you just can't ever see them do wrong, or can't ever see them make a evil decision. And it's such an interesting character arc and narrative to go down. Someone you believe could be just so morally upright to make a critical decision against what their nature is like. So I mean, I'll go back to, we're all human. And so, yes, I think you are going to get people who are, and who have shown themselves to be time and time and time again, morally outstanding people who make decisions for good and do their best to always make the correct decisions, then make a decision that goes against that so wholeheartedly. Or go back against a promise that they made to a loved one themselves or a family member, whatever. I think that's one of the reasons why, like, Spider-Man having Venom in him is such a compelling story for so many people, because he's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and then you get that tainting of the symbiote in him. But like, and with this, you get Katara, who has been like our pillar of hope and trust and love and familial ties and togetherness. And now she's been kind of injected with this power that she never wanted. But Hama made sure that it lived on within Katara, that Hama's work over 30, 40 years or whatever while she was in that Fire Nation prison gets passed on through Katara and then into the world. So I don't agree with Katara using bloodbending like against Yan Ra, and through that kind of arc of the Southern Raiders, her field trip with Zuko. But it's because she knows that power and what it can do is that it becomes outlawed. It becomes illegal in society later on. So like it is not morally right to do, but what the good that can come from that is knowing it firsthand and knowing that, like, knowing, I guess, like how to, I don't know how to stop it, but to know that you can try and put some laws and some things around it to be banned and be prohibited.
Had she never learned it, does Amon still control the ability to do it?
Yes, I think so. Amon and his brother learn from their father. And while it is bloodbending, it's a different technique of bloodbending. It's psychic bloodbending that isn't tied to the power of the full moon. So just like we see things like metal bending coming from Toph, I think, to quote Jurassic Park, life finds a way.
Life finds a way.
So I think when you get these exceptional benders who can do these kinds of things, you will see growths in specific areas of bending. So no, I don't think that if Katara didn't learn that from Hama, it would not have still been prevalent later on. Somewhere, somehow, some way, maybe not in the exact same way, but it would still come out one way or another through some kind of probably intense situation like Hama when she was backed up in a corner and had nothing else to do for 40 years.
I agree. I agree. I think strictly because we never see I don't even remember his name, Amon's father's, strictly because we never see how he learns it. He develops this technique on his own. It's only logical to say that somebody at some point would have thought of this. Similar to the bad guy, the Airbender in the third season, fourth season? No, it's the third season. The Airbender. No, I'm sure people have thought about using airbending in the ways that he used them, but nobody ever really did. So
yeah, Zahir,
that's it. So I think that's in that same realm of somebody's going to try it at some point, for me.
We do see an instance, though, of an airbender utilizing... Are you referencing when Zahir
with the Earth
chokes
Queen.
the Earth Queen? I mean, we see an instance of that in episode 3 of Avatar. Of when Aang goes to the air temple with Katara and Sokka.
Oh, okay, but we see it alluded to. We don't see the actual act of
We don't see the act of it happening. And it's, him against the wall, and it's because he knows he's not getting out of that situation. It's a genocide happening in front of his eyes.
Right. There is a huge difference between using it as a last resort, the ends justify the means, and using it in the way that we see Zahir using it.
100%.
But when it comes to bloodbending, there is no difference between the way that Hama taught Katara to use it and the way that Amon uses it years later. They're for the same thing.
Sure.
So I think that's the only place where I'll fight you back on that is...
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, there are useful techniques for using the airbending that way if you're trapped by yourself against dozens of enemies. Yes, absolutely. But control over another person is just control over another person when it comes to bloodbending. There's no special situation. Like, it'd have to be a really special situation. So I don't know. So I guess that'll bring me my next follow-up question. Was it really Katara's choice to use bloodbending, or were there no other options left?
When going against Yan Ra?
Yes.
Absolutely she had a choice. Absolutely. It was freaking raining, like... Does she actually bloodbend him, though?
She doesn't bloodbend
she
him.
Bloodbends
the
Raider.
Guy
who, yeah, the Raider guy. But I don't think she bloodbends.
She decides not to at that point.
Yeah.
Which is like her boomerang arc around this whole conundrum.
Right. Yeah, they're the ninja squad going through and decimating that force on the Southern Raider ship. she did not have to bloodbend the captain there. They could have overpowered him easily using any other methods. And you even see like Zuko's face in that instance, like his eyes, like, oh my god, what am I seeing? This is a new side of Katara and a new side of bending I've never freaking seen before.
I also I was just thinking about this now. Do you think Katara may have used that in front of Zuko intentionally to kind of be like, well, you better be careful because this is the kinds of things that I can do if you betray us?
I think she was in that mindset of, I am powerful, I'm going to get my way one way or another, and no one is going to stop me, not even if that is you, Zuko. I don't think her... that was not a mistake for her to bloodbend in front of Zuko that way.
I agree. I also think that it may have been a message of some kind. And, I mean, we'll never know. We're not going to get more in-depth, like, Avatar The Last Airbender stuff with whatever Netflix is doing, and they're not going to go back and rehash this story again from, like, Katara's point of view. There's no point in either of those things. But it's kind of an interesting speculation because I hadn't thought about it until just now.
Yeah. And she verbally threatens him before, right, like before he joins the group. You take one step back, one slip up, give me one reason to think that you might hurt Aang. You won't have to worry about your destiny anymore because I will end it right then and there. Thank you. I'll take my Oscar. But like she is verbally gone against like Zuko and threatened him and been very cold against him leading up to that point. I think it's absolutely on par with where her mental state is in that moment, to where I'm going to showcase my anger and my hurt in this way, any way that I can, because I can.
Awesome. Well, let's dig into a new question.
Sure.
Moving forward to our almost last critical path. When we look at Avatar's Roku, Aang, and Korra, each left the worlds in a wildly different state than when they found it. What lessons can we take from their choices and their legacies?
Well, you know, so much about this in this kind of Roku, in between Roku and Aang era, because it's the basis of Avatar. It sets up the world that we initially can sink our teeth into, and it's a major conflict that Aang continues to go back to Roku for help as the Avatar before him. And Roku's advice continues to be like, you need to bring the world into balance. You need to fix my mistakes because I'm not able to do that. He puts that weight on Aang the first time essentially that they talk, is that I am sorry that I've put you in this position. It is through my fault that the world is so out of balance, and unfortunately I'm sorry, but it has to come to you to fix it as the next in line. So there's that weight on Aang throughout the whole series, that we see, of him having to try and put the world back into balance after that. And that weight doesn't end after the series ends, because then there's the healing that has to happen after a immense world conflict like that. And so how do you, as one person, yeah, sure, a group, but you as the Avatar, help heal the world from such a long-standing battle between families, between nations like that? So that was so much of Aang's legacy, is trying to get the world back into a sense of balance, a sense of peace. And there's little victories and there's large victories there. With Korra, she was trying to maintain the status that the world was after Aang, because everyone saw Aang as such a amazing avatar. Really, among avatars, was someone that brought the world out of such a state. And then really, like, she was hammered home with, you are the avatar, you need to fix these problems, whether it's, spirit vines are going in my house and it's affecting this one family, or it's the spirits, the dark spirits are around everywhere and are attacking all citizens. What are you as the avatar going to do about that? So there really was this pedestal that she had to climb to live up to Aang's image and his legacy. And thankfully she had, Tenzin as Aang's son to help her there, to be an airbending teacher for the actual act of airbending, for culture, for all of this spiritual stuff too. And then with Jinora as well, as kind of a spiritual leader too. But that was so much of what she was trying to do, was to live up to that and to keep the world. I felt like she had like a world in her hands, like a water sphere in her hands, and it's just like dripping down her fingers as she's trying to keep it spherical, and there's just things that continue to happen that she's trying to cup it all together, but event after event after millennia long things happen that just are out of her control.
So we already established that Roku's failure shaped Aang, mostly because it was Roku's failures that Aang had inherited and had to take care of. Was Korra as shaped by Aang as Aang was Roku?
I'd go as far to say is maybe very close, if not as much, because of the state of the world that it's in. We now have, Fire Nation colonies are still established in places. We have Republic City, which is something that we've never seen in the series before, where people of all nations can come together and live, hopefully in a harmonious state, with Air Temple Island being right there, all 4 nations together in one place. We even see the White Lotus come out of secrecy and become more of like bodyguards and protectors of the Avatar, and that's something that Aang in his time kind of helped facilitate to be a protector of Korra while she trained, to guard over prisoners of those who had great talent. So yeah, it's still the world that she inherited, and she still has to be in that time and live up to and continue on the legacy and the tradition of what came before her. It's different times. One was a huge war that had the world out of balance, and the other was more of like a political and then intense people who gained or had great power against her or the nations.
Yeah, I think Roku likely shaped Aang more. And I feel like a big part of me says that because Aang, the entire time we were watching Avatar, had this connection, had this ability to communicate with Roku. But Korra doesn't have this same ability for 50%, a little more than 50% of the series. Like
more, for 25%.
Yeah. So she doesn't connect with Aang and get these backstories and this help and this is what I would do, this is where I was taking this. she doesn't have the same help and has been handed the same level of burden. So I think, at least from my perspective, Roku shaped Aang more than Aang shaped Korra by a wide margin.
But she does have the heart and the soul of what Aang. So not necessarily Aang himself, but what Aang stood for and what his morals were are such a huge part of Korra. And she has a connection to that through Tenzin specifically, and through what everyone else in the world is telling her, because she has a more of a connection to the world than Aang does in that time, because the world is not in the middle of a 100-year war. So she doesn't have that direct feed so much, but she still feels the weight of that burden and is still in that same kind of instance. And that's, I think, where my part of that is coming from.
And that makes sense to me. That makes a lot of sense to me. So what do all of these contrasts between Roku, which we talked about earlier, Aang and Korra, tell us about leadership in different times?
I mean, sometimes you're gonna get peaceful leaders who want to do the best for their nations, who won't, do anything that they ever possibly could to spread their ideals, their beliefs, and grow their nation, to continue to upkeep and uphold their nation, absolutely, but like to expand, to take over, to conquer. And you see a lot of great leaders like them, even a lot of great leaders, now that I'm kind of thinking about it. Like, even the Earth King in Atla wasn't a great leader in that instance. He was kind, he was just, but he's got a great bear. Boy, that's a great bear. But he was so blind to everything that was going on around him. Honestly, you see a lot more corrupt leaders or power-hungry leaders in Avatar than not.
Or leaders that are just not there. Like, they're physically there, but mentally they've checked out. Like, that's how the Ty Lee was able to expand so much right underneath the Earth King's nose.
Oh, the Ty Lee, yeah. Yeah.
Shit. My bad.
Ty Lee's the...
Yeah, Ty Lee's the firebender chick. Their names are too close. But I think they're corrupt, or they're not present, and the handful of good leaders that you see are the main characters. We see them every day. Like, and Boomy. Boomy would be my other exception to that rule, because I think Boomy was a good leader. The holidays remind us of resilience, finding light in dark places. How do the avatars, through their failures and their triumphs, embody resilience and renewal? Do their stories echo the same idea of hope through hardship?
Oh, wow. 100% they do. I mean, you see Aang and the gang going through their entire journey in Avatar. They're freaking kids. Like, they don't have an adult with them. They are kids going through with this inherent quest. Like, they know what they need to do is going to change the outcome of the world. So they hold on to that hope, that knowledge that they need to get through, sometimes very dangerous parts through the Fire Nation to get to where their next destination is, to further that goal that is for the betterment of the world. And so there are little victories here and there that they get. Like when during the fortune teller, when the gang is there to stop that volcano from destroying that city. They happen to be in that place. That's just where their travels were put them through at that time. But because they were there, they were able to stop that natural disaster from happening and to save those people. So that to them is a huge victory that they can then take with them as they continue on through their path. And then, you get your instances like Appa being taken in the desert. And then how do you go on? How do you continue with any kind of semblance of hope or perseverance through such tragedy? And it's partially knowing that you have to be continuing to put one foot in front of the other. You have to, what you're doing is so monumental for the world that you need to go on in troubled times, in the despair of the moment, if it comes to that. I mean, that's the bread and butter of Avatar, is the whole instance of the world is you see the devastation of the Fire Nation all around you, in camps for Earth Kingdom, for Water Tribe people, but then you see the hope, the fight back, the resilience, the group of Water Tribe men who are doing what they can to fight against the war. And then you get your instance of hope in the Day of Black Sun, of where this one time, this is what we've been going for. This is what we need to strike back at the Fire Nation. This is our big chance. And then it fails. And then you have to be able to turn around and say, okay, well, what do we do now? How best can we pick ourselves back up? How can we bounce back from that and continue on our path this way? So you see that everywhere, dripping in Avatar. You definitely see it through Korra as well. I mean, Korra's character arc is filled with trials and tribulations, and she has such a hard time battling herself of what is the right thing to do. Did I do the right thing? Now that I've made this decision that everyone has to live with, how can I make it better for people in the long run? What can I do to help people more? So she's in a constant struggle internally with herself of, I took this loss, Amon took away Lin Beifong's bending. What a huge, debilitating loss that was in that moment. What can we do to continue to fight through that through hope? How can we be resilient against that? And it's going against the ideals, not just Amon himself, but the ideals of that party. So yeah, it is everywhere in Avatar and Korra.
So, what specifically can we carry into our own lives from their resiliences?
I think the biggest thing that we can take from the stories and that resilience of when to know to keep going on or how to keep on, even when you don't know how to keep going on, is the connections, is the strength that you make with the people around you, whether that be your family, whether that be your friends, whether that be your partner. That is what gets people through difficult times. And you see it time and time again in Avatar and in Korra. The reason that the gang is able to get through what they do is because they have each other. If it was just one of them, it would not have been positive. Their efforts would have been fruitless. Each one of them contributes something specific and unique to the group. and a much needed asset to the group. It's the ability to be able to comfort each other when one is down, the other can pick it up. To have those different points of view, even to share strategies, to share plans, ideas, tactics. It's not just about one person's resilience going through life or to achieve an objective. It's about the collectiveness, the familial ties, whether it's through blood or not, that gets people to the end, that gets people to their goal. So that's really what we can take away from that is surround yourself with good people, and to not be afraid or feel shame to rely on them if you need, because it is a part of being human, it's a part of being life. And it goes both ways. Sometimes you can be that pillar for someone that really needs it in their life, and sometimes they can be that pillar for you.
And sometimes they're not, and that's okay too.
That's absolutely fine too. Having someone that you just are always like buddy and like you see them and it's like a light on both of your faces and you just always have fun times with, that's an important thing as well. To be able to blow off steam and to just have fun and shoot the shit with each other. That is extremely unique, not unique. It is extremely helpful and beneficial connection as well.
I agree. I think all of those kinds of not just the connections that are the pillars of our lives, but the connections that we don't, I guess, think of as often are still just as critical in our lives, where you see a coworker, perchance, like you have a coworker that you're not particularly close, you're not great friends, but you're able to achieve a common goal together. Those kinds of relationships as well are very, very important and very beneficial. I think,
yeah, well said.
In addition to the connections and the reliance that you have or don't have on other people, I think keeping in mind that when Aang is at his lowest, right before he goes in and he fights the Fire Lord and he's 100% certain he's going to have to kill him, he secludes himself. I think that's another really important thing. He secludes himself, he goes deep inside of himself, and he tries to find something that will answer the troubles inside of him. I think that's the other side of this coin is, yes, having people to rely on, especially during hard times, and having people rely on you, especially when they're in hard times, is very important, but you should never discount how much you can achieve if you sit down and actually think about it. Like, it's one of those... Avatar is so great about this, because so much of it is turmoil. So much of the story has to do with this level of turmoil that most people, your average everyday person, is not going to have to deal with. But the things that they learn and the things that they teach in that show are things that you can take with you everywhere. It's where I first learned about meditation. It's where I first learned about the chakras. Like,
same.
So it's very important to also have time where you're not being a pillar for anybody else, and you are able to stand up on your own.
You cannot always rely on other people. You have to be able to rely on yourself.
Yes.
But the strength that can come from that can also come from the connections that you've made with other people, and the confidence you've been given with those connections.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, man, we're just about done. Let's go ahead and head into our last save point. Closing question. Who would you clash with more at the holiday gathering? Toph or Azula?
For my own sanity, will you say it again?
Who would you clash with more at a holiday gathering? Toph or Azula?
Oh, specifically at a holiday gathering.
Yeah,
It's gotta be Azula.
Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner. Azula?
It's gotta be Azula. Because Toph is gonna, for the most part, kind of be doing her own thing. You know, she's gonna eat the food, whatever. She might have a laugh or two, but she's not going to be inciting a familial argument or trying to win Thanksgiving dinner. Using the bite of her tongue or scorching your turkey leg because you said you left a cherry pit in her cherry.
You know, that's a really good point.
Yeah, Azula all the way.
So, which is scarier? Azula running a Secret Santa or Toph cooking?
Ooh. Ooh. So I think with Toph cooking, you can't lie to Toph. So I don't think we've seen Toph ever cook. But I would not inherently believe that she's an insane cook. So whatever you're given from her, you can't lie yourself out of that conundrum. However, I think she would take it better than Azula running a Secret Santa. Because, you know, if you really liked the mountains or something, and Azula for Secret Santa gives you a plot of land in the Water Nation that she burned 50 bodies to get to give you that because it's what you wanted. Being the psychopath that she becomes. But I think there'd be some she's also wickedly smart. I have no doubt that she could give some really good presence and orchestrate that well. And she knew May and Ty Lee very well. She's obviously able to have good connections with people and strong friendships with people. So I still think I'm going with Azula here.
Okay.
I fear the retribution from Azula more than I fear lying to Toph.
It's great.
That's a really, really good question.
Thanks. All right. So before we wrap up tonight, let's look ahead. Avatar Studios has more series on the horizon, from movies to not even possible new avatars, definite new avatars now. What do you hope they explore within the next decade? Should they revisit characters we know, or start fresh with a brand new avatar in a brand new era?
First of all, I think it is so wonderful that Michael and Brian broke away from Avatar, from the Netflix series, and have essentially been given the reins by Nickelodeon to say, this is your worlds. You take the time that you need to make it what you want it to be. Run free. So they've Avatar Studios has been around for years now. We've heard bits and pieces and just a little bit more as we're kind of getting up to this first movie, The Legend of Aang. And I said it when they when it was announced that they were creating it, and I'll say it 10 times over, let them cook. They gave us this amazing, beautiful, in-depth world and universe. Let them do what they do best, and let them cultivate it with the people that they think it's going to be the best with. So I think it's really, really cool that we're getting both. We're getting animated stories of Aang and the gang after we see them at the end of Avatar. Excuse me. We've only seen bits of in some of the comics that are not easily accessible to people. So it's going to be really, really cool to see them explore this world in between what the general masses know of between the series, in an instance that's going to be just so easily identifiable with really anyone who knows Avatar. So that's going to be really, really cool. And of course, moving forward into the series is going to be amazing to get brand new story arcs, brand new characters, brand new developments, brand new cataclysms that we currently know nothing about, but also from what we know of so far, the Avatar is not this beacon of balance in the world. The Avatar is the person that's destroyed the world and made it this kind of almost post-apocalyptic area, and is the blame of that. So it's a huge antithesis from what we've seen the Avatar being in every other instance of the universe. So we're already starting on a foot of, not even a foot, we're starting in a completely different realm that we've ever known of Avatar. So to even start with something that different and to go down this path is going to be so interesting and intriguing, and I cannot wait for more Avatar anywhere, but specifically for that.
I'm pretty excited for new stuff. As much as it pains me to say this, because they are not involved, I really enjoyed the Netflix adaptation. I'm looking forward to the next 2 seasons because I want to see kind of what they keep and what they get rid of. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. It's unfortunate that they are not heading the team. Like, that would have been my vote, is put them in charge of this project. Like, Netflix can do the casting, I don't care. Put them in charge of the writing, put them in charge of the project. That's what I would have liked to see. With what we got in season 1, I can't say that I'm too disappointed. We dropped a lot of really good storylines and a lot of the yucks that you get in the cartoon, but holy cow, they did an incredible job. Like, with what they did use, they did an incredible job. They stayed fairly close to the source material, and the actors are great. They're incredible. So I'm really looking forward to more of that. I'm really looking forward to Seven Havens. And the movies. We're getting, what, 2, 3 new movies for...
3.
3?
Yeah. At least from what they've announced so far. It doesn't mean they stop there.
Yeah, it could be more. So...
they are also doing at least from right now, doing a AAA game.
Oh, yes. Which...
It's like Fire and Ice or something like that.
And none of their games have done great.
There's some really bad games, especially the newest one that came out was so bad.
But I'd like to see them be successful on one of those ventures, because that would be such a cool game to play in. And, like, fans are hungry for it. They're going to buy it. They're going to play it, whether it's good or bad. That's why we know that the most recent one wasn't great, and they really haven't produced a good one.
You don't even have to say the new one wasn't great. It was bad. It was very, very bad.
Yeah, it's got 1.5 stars on the PlayStation Network. Like, Not a great game.
Bad game.
Far from it. So, if you could greenlight a project tomorrow in the Avatar universe, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. This is out of left field. Oh my goodness. I would love some kind of immersive area into like a theme park or something. Universal just opened up Super Mario World here in Florida. And I've not yet gone to that, but I'm looking forward to doing that when I can.
Is that a part of Epic?
Yeah, it's a part of Epic.
Okay.
But to be able to like walk around and see some of this beautiful architecture, to have them find some kind of way to try and bring some of these animals to life, to be able to, you know, sit and have tea with Iroh, to be able to feel the heat of a firebender letting loose a blast, to going through some bending classes and learning some traditional moves. Like, all of these things would be really, really cool to experience in a world enveloped in a place. So I think that would be something really, really cool to see. It'd have to be done very well, obviously, but I think that would be really, really cool.
I think that would be cool. I want the Roku movie. I want the Roku movie. Like,
in Kyoshi, so well, it's not that far off.
Yeah, 80 years or so. I mean,
it won't be that long.
All right. Well, Alec, I want to start off our farewell by saying thank you for being here. It's been awesome talking to you about Avatar. And that's it for our holiday special. Before we wrap up, do you want to give the listeners a farewell? If you want to be found on the internet, maybe let them know where you can be found.
Yeah, thank you all so much for listening and for being here. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm really passionate about Avatar. But also I'm really passionate about relationships and connections, and being able to be here with my best friend Josh is wonderful. Like, we've gone through so many of these kinds of talks throughout our storied history, and to actually have it up on a platform is actually really cool, and to get to kind of talk and go through things and, you know, agree on a lot of things and disagree on some others. Katang. But it's been a blast to be here. So thank you so much for listening. If I start streaming, I'll start streaming and I'll be fine. But, you know, we'll get to that when we get to that. Otherwise, you'll probably see me on Twitch and Align and running around with Josh. So if you're going along with him, then you won't forget about me.
Awesome. Thanks again, Alec. And thanks for everybody for spending your holiday here with us, talking about Avatar and spending it with Canon Cogito. This is the last episode of the year, so look forward to a few weeks away. We're going to have a brand new season with brand new tropes. If you liked this episode, don't forget to like the video on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, and please leave a 5-star review. It helps us reach more people. As we log off tonight, I want to just remind everybody to take care of each other. The world is heavy, and this episode of the podcast really emphasizes how much being together with friends, family around this time of year is very helpful. And that's why communities and stories like this really, really matter. happiest of holidays to you and yours. I'm Josh. I think we're there for fandom. We'll see you guys next time.